Welcome to Unsealing You. Today's guest is Joanna, and she spent over a decade as a bench scientist, designing experiments, publishing research, delivering excellence in the lab. Then she made one of the hardest pivots a high achiever can make. She walked away from the identity she had spent 10 years building and started over. A new field, new business, and new version of herself while still holding a full-time job. What I want you to pay attention to in this conversation is not what she did, it's how she thought about it. Because Joanna did something that most capable people never do. She learned to put things down, not because she gave up, because she simply figured out what was actually hers to carry. That is harder than it sounds. And by the end of this episode, I think you're going to understand exactly why. I'm Dr. Natalie Luke, and let's get into it. Joanna, thank you so much for coming on to Unsealing You. I'm really happy to have you on to hear about your career and all your pivots. You've spent several years as a scientist leading complex projects, publishing and managing collaborations. And during that time, you started to build your work in communication as you are doing it today in writing. What did that period actually look like for you day to day when you were doing both the science and the communication work?
Thank you so much, Natalie, for having me. It's a great pleasure. How it looked like, it was definitely intense. That was the time, as any time of transition in life. So when I was a scientist, wet lab scientist, I realized, okay, I really enjoy that, but I also want to make impact in different areas. Science, and what I really started enjoying is actually scientific communication and content creation. So day-to-day life. So as any life, you have your 9 to 5 where you dedicate hours in the lab where you're spending the hours. I was spending many hours in front of the bench, designing the experiments as a typical scientific life look like. And then after hours, or actually before starting my work, I was dedicating time to learn about the communication, to read about the communication. The great thing is that as a scientist, you always learn, you always read. So I could overlap to a certain extent, both my work and my passion at that time. So during the daytime, when I was reading the articles, when I was reviewing science, anything interesting that I found, then I was using that for the future scientific communication for creating content. And at the same time, also understanding business side. So because one thing is communicating and the other one's actually selling yourself to clients and your services to clients. So building also this the skills, how to create a business, how to sell the business, how to speak to people. That was also another part that I was doing in my free time that I didn't have too much, but it was very intense and rewarding time for me.
Yeah. So in the intense and rewarding time, did you ever feel like maybe it was a waste of time as you were like any discouragement as you were doing this because it was so intense?
I think in any transition, in any pivoting, Natalie, there is a moment when you're hitting a wall. And that's something that is usually difficult. It's very, very challenging. So I also reached that point of I don't know, I don't want to call it burnout, but point of really high saturation where I had just too many things going on at the same time, full-time job, transitional studies that I decided to do at the time when I was a scientist, when I decided to also launch myself into EMBA program and actually learn about the business. There were moments when I was arriving to the point like, I can't do it. I have too many priorities in my life. I should focus or refocus on certain things, but
did you hear that? Too many priorities, not too little effort, not too little talent. Too many priorities landing on one person. That's not a time management problem. That's not a discipline problem. That is what I call the trust tax at work. And Joanna is describing it from the inside. Here is exactly what's happening. She's excellent. She is trusted. And because she's trusted, the system, her employer, her executive MBA program, her own ambitions kept routing more to her because she catches everything, because the alternative is watching things fall. And she cares too much to let that happen. So the load compounds and compounds until one day it doesn't compound quietly anymore. And I want you to notice is that Joanna did not say she was failing. She was still showing up, still enrolled in the MBA, still running the business, still doing the job. The saturation hit while she was still delivering. That's exactly what the trust tax looks like from the inside. And most people never name it until something breaks.
I think in that moment, I realized the power of your network, the power of your colleagues, the power of the safety net that you have and other people that help you actually, Joanna, calm down, and help you, to find the way and just move the wall together with you. And I understood, that I don't only rely on myself and my own skills, but I really have a very supporting environment that can help me with achieving my goals. Yeah, definitely there's a time when you're hitting a wall, but I think with great people in your life, you can overcome those challenges.
That's fantastic. Can you tell me maybe a story of one of those folks that helped you? How did they go about helping you? What were you thinking and what did they do for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was doing a transition, I find myself in a great moment of life. At the same time, I was doing my executive MBA, and that's where I met the people, like-minded people like myself, who are also in this transition in life, who actually understand the struggles. So I definitely have very supportive colleagues. Shout out to Hannah and Carmen, who was always supporting me and giving me this warm, either virtual or real hugs, how to manage this moment. And also career coaches. I think that's something that at certain stage of your career you realized might be also beneficial. So I had two very good career coaches to actually help me refocus myself, who helped me find the priorities, who also helped me overcome this feeling of feel bad. I mean, you're not giving up your 9 to 5, but you also maybe feel sometimes that you under-deliver. So they also helped me to kind of refocus my mind in my priorities. So definitely people itself, career coaches, I think that's the most beneficial lessons that I got from them, and they helped me to find the right way in my.
So it sounds like in that moment, what you were doing is redirecting where you focus your energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you began expanding beyond science into communication and business, that's a big identity shift. What did you feel you needed to prove, and how did that influence where you put your energy?
Great question, Natalie. And I agree, huge identity shift, for someone who has been over 10 years, scientist, delivering excellence, delivering science. All of a sudden you feels like you give up your career, you give up your part of yourself. I didn't know how to call myself, right? I'm not really scientist anymore, but I'm also not scientific communicator at that time because I don't have that much expertise. I mean, I do have expertise, but I don't perceive that I didn't perceive that I have this expertise, because after all, as a scientist, you do communicate science all the time. So it was the moment when, as you're right, it requires you to redirect energies to find yourself, basically. Finding yourself again, finding yourself who you are, how you want to.
Stop right there. Did you catch that? She has over 10 years of scientific training. She has built a business. She has an executive MBA. And she said, I don't know what to call myself. That's not imposter syndrome. That's the identity trap. And it's one of the most overlooked costs of any major transition. Here is what happens to high performers. We tie our identity to our role. The role becomes who we are: scientist, leader, the expert, the one with the answers. And for a long time, that works. The role and the person feel like the same thing. But when the role changes and suddenly the question is not just, what do I know? What do I do now? The question is, who am I now? And that question is terrifying, because the old identity was the thing that made you feel valuable, made you feel safe, made you feel like you belonged in the room. This is why so many capable people either stay stuck in a role they've outgrown or blow themselves out trying to hold two identities at once. The one that feels real and the one that doesn't feel earned yet. Joanna found her way through, but what I want you to notice, she didn't push through the identity crisis. She sat in it. She got coaches. She let people hold space while she figured out who she was becoming. That's not a weakness. That's a structural move that makes the transition possible.
Be perceived, but I also find that great moment of growth, because you're basically reshaping yourself. You can be whoever you want, right? And this moment, this pivot in life where you decide to do this switch, it really helped me, to reshape myself, to define who I am, right? That I am a scientific communicator, I am a businesswoman who grow my business as well, and I had to reshift the energy. What was very helpful for me, particularly, is to redefining my priorities. At a certain stage, when I had so many things, my to-do list started growing and growing and growing, because you have your to-do list for work, 9 to 5, you have your to-do list for business, you have to-do list for private life. At a certain stage, I realized it's just not feasible. I can't reach and fulfill every 20 points that I put every day. And it became, after all, energy draining, became discouraging as well, because when you're not putting all the points, after all, it is discouraging, because you feel that there's certain failure. And that was the moment of realization, okay, maybe it's just too much, right? It's not that I'm not enough, it's just too much for me, for one person to deliver everything.
I want you to hear the distinction she just made, because it is everything. She said, it's not that I'm not enough, it's that it's just too much. That sentence is the difference between a personal failure story and a structural diagnosis. And most high performers never make that distinction. They keep adding to the list. They keep optimizing their mornings. They keep pushing, because the assumption underneath it all is that if they were just a little better, a little more disciplined, a little bit more resilient, they could carry it. But the list was never the problem. The design was the problem. When Joanna stopped and said, I need 3 priorities, not 20, she did something most people are terrified to do. She admitted that the system she was running was broken, not her, the system, and she redesigned it. That is responsibility design in action. Not, how am I going to cope with this load, but why is this load structured this way, and what actually needs to change? The to-do list that never empties is not a motivation problem. It's a design problem, and design problems have design solutions.
Defining, in my case, 3 priorities, like big goals in life, like annual goals, and kind of shifting and redirecting my to-do list towards those goals, right? So starting evaluating my tasks and my moves through the lens of those goals, right? Is this task really contribute to moving my goal forward? Is attending this event really contribute to my goal ABC, right? And that's something that was very helpful for me, to just kind of spending a lot of time about thinking what my priorities are and having them very clear helped me really move forward, because then the decisions are becoming relatively easy, right? It's basically pretty much, I don't want to say black and white, but it's pretty much yes and no. And saying no becomes easier in that situation.
Yeah. And I could see that, for you, you're transitioning from a scientist to a writer, but some people transition from the person who delivers the science to becoming a leader and not having to deliver that science. And that identity shift in there, I could see where they would experience some of the same things, where it's like, hey, you know what? You can't do your old job and your new job at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Definitely transitions from scientists to the management roles are, it's a very similar type of transition, because from dealing with science or start dealing with people, and this is absolutely totally different area, because you really require different set of skills for managing people, for leading people, helping others to grow. And so it is this writing, right? From being a scientist and being responsible for my samples only, and delivering excellence just for myself, to delivering excellence for clients and making them being happy and being satisfied with the services. It's a huge learning experience to ensuring that they are happy and becoming this person who is client oriented or people oriented. And that's something that I had to learn.
So as you were making that transition from the scientist and
Yeah.
learning to, what were some of the things that you felt like you needed to give up responsibility for in hindsight and that were not yours to carry?
Okay, so it is that are not mine to carry. I feel as a scientist, myself as a scientist, I think we are doubting ourselves a lot, especially in the lab conditions, right? When you're just kind of always questioning results, always questioning what you are getting, right? Is it the right direction that I'm heading? And I had to give up this mindset to a certain point, having more confidence in my own skills and what I deliver to the clients, because otherwise I just spend too many times giving thought, is it excellent enough? Is it good enough? So rather than progressing, I felt that I was in this moment where I was just like having this internal dialogue, which was stopping me actually for delivering to the clients. And sometimes it's better done than perfect, and just showing client the results, even if they're not fully unfinished, and getting their opinion and the feedback. That's something that I learned. And giving up on excellence sounds horrible, because I still believe that I deliver excellence to the client, but it's different type of excellence and different type of delivery. But having more confidence in showing client your work, it's something that I had to learn on the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so insightful, especially when you're, like you said, as a scientist, you have to, okay, we got these great results, but what if this was wrong? What if that was wrong? Can we reproduce these results?
Absolutely.
And I see a certain perfectionistic tendency. I work with scientists all the time, and I don't know how I had to actually start to define a rabbit hole in a wormhole. Like, okay, that I would define as a rabbit hole. Let's get out of there. Come on, guys. That's a definite wormhole, and it's going to a lot of other wormholes. We need to back out of here ASAP.
Absolutely. As a scientist, we are perfectionists. We strive to deliver excellence, and this is great for science, but not necessarily for business. Business rewards speed over excellence, and that was a big lesson for me when I moved towards business.
Write that one down. Business rewards speed over excellence. Now, here is what I want to add to that, because this is bigger than a lesson about business versus science. What Joanna is describing is what happens when you carry the standards of one system into a completely different one. And this is not just a scientist's problem. I see this with leaders all the time. They're trained in an environment that rewarded one kind of excellence, thoroughness, precision, getting it perfect before it goes out. And then they step into a new role, a new level, a new context, and they bring the same standard with them, because that standard is how they earned their reputation. It is how they proved their worth. But the new environment doesn't need that standard. It needs something different. And they are carrying a weight, a self-imposed standard that nobody in the room actually asked for. That is a form of the trust tax too. Not just what the system puts on you, what you put on yourself, because you haven't yet asked which bar you're actually supposed to be clearing. I love that we were able to point that out. So now that you've built across science, communication, and business, and you're operating in multiple dimensions, how do you think about boundaries, not as a limit, but as a way of directing your energy?
When it comes to boundaries, it comes again to goals. And that's what I mentioned before, right? I think that having clearly defined goals in your life, both professional and private goals, help you define the boundaries itself and when you are directing your energy. So if your goals are clear, I think that makes very relatively easy to set up boundaries as well. So using the goals as a lens again to prioritizing certain things help to set up boundaries, right? Like for me, for instance, if my goal is to grow my business, or my goal is to get more clients, any kind of decision that I'm making, or any kind of connection that I'm making, I'm evaluating through this and setting up boundaries accordingly, right? If this connection event contributes to my goals, that's great. If it doesn't contribute, okay, I will set a boundary there, because after all, I have to protect my own energy to make sure that I'm able to deliver the goals and still deliver the excellence to people.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you a leader who wants more wins in your business? Listen to the award-winning Executive Wins podcast, where senior leaders share their biggest wins so that you can get inspired and grow your business. Wins include scaling multi-million-dollar businesses, thriving after bankruptcy, gaining clarity in an ambulance, and more. In every episode, host Gordon Shepherd explores the anatomy of a win, so you can learn the strategy, work plan, people, operations, and results behind every win you hear on the show. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit executivewins.com/podcast to learn more.
Yep. So how do you go about catching yourself because things can happen. I mean, there's shiny quarters there all the time to chase or to, that looks interesting. That might help me catch my, get my goals. How do you catch yourself?
Through my mistakes, Natalie. It's not that it happens, as you said, there are this gold coins, like, I will do this, I will do that. Yeah, I mean, we are humans, right? All of us, we have temptations, right? And sometimes you just do what I'm doing, what I'm not supposed to do. I'm going for 3 events in a row for 3 days and realizing that wasn't a good idea after all, right? So that this kind of arriving to those point of saturation, like kind of when my body or my mind is tired, that helps me to just kind of catching myself. Okay, Joanna, maybe slow down. I also leave a little bit room to wiggle for fun, because obviously there's a part to for reaching. There's a part that is dedicated to reach my goals.
Yeah.
To grow my business. I also want to enjoy the way, right? So
yeah,
still collect some of those coins and still be tempted by certain events, certain opportunities, unexpected opportunities, right? And just take them, because sometimes they can really give you totally different views and totally different perspective for certain things. So I'm still do them from time to time, and then just also try to find enough time to reset after all and reload my batteries.
Reset, my favorite word. When you've built a very strong platform sharing insights in communications, complex ideas, and making them clear. That was your passion, is taking complex scientific information and making it clear to folks. It's not an easy thing, I will say. Do you ever get a opportunity to see how people are stepping into their true potential, or kind of holding themselves back?
I think that depends a lot of the person, and it's very individualistic, right? Especially with the customers that I'm working with. Depends quite a lot from the background and how open-minded they are. As with everyone is getting feedback, but depends on you how you will take this feedback to your heart and to your mind, right? And the same is happening with customers or my audience, right? There are certain individuals, certain people who take a feedback, take their potential, and explore their potential and grow and evolve and develop new skills and develop new way of communicating their science or the business. And there are certain people who are more resistant to change, which is also okay, who doesn't have such a huge growing mindset to change. And that's also fine, right? After all, everyone is making certain choices.
Right. And so one of the things that I like to talk about, especially as you're thinking about your career and the things that you've done, you've taken a certain amount of accountability and responsibility for your career, for thinking about yourself, being open to thinking about the possibilities. I wonder if there's kind of like a fine balance between taking too much responsibility and not taking enough. Have you thought about that or encountered that at all in your journey?
In my own journey, I haven't encountered that much because, as you mentioned, I'm kind of a person who takes my career or my fate with my own hands and decide to just put the direction and the strategy by myself and just taking the responsibility. I do find also, again, coming from the scientific background, that as a scientist, we are very hesitant about asking for help. We always do or take those responsibilities, as I did myself. I just put a lot of weight on my own shoulders and put all the responsibilities on my own shoulders and just move my career in the direction that I want. But during that time, I realized, that asking for help, asking for mentoring, asking for coaching, it's something that could be super helpful. Asking for other opinions, other views, it's something that could be very beneficial in my career path, right? And it was very beneficial in my career path when I was finding myself. It was great for me to actually interact with others, asking for help, certain things, for introductions, and that kind of makes the way a little bit easier. It's still responsibility, but it's kind of divided, and other people are.
Joanna just described the moment the trust tax started to lift. Not because the work got easier, not because the stakes got lower, but because she stopped trying to carry it all in one lane. Here is what I want you to understand about asking for help, because I don't think we talk about this the right way. We frame it as humility. We frame it as knowing your limits. And those things, they're true, but they miss the structural truth underneath. Asking for help is not admitting weakness. Asking for help is redesigning the system. When Joanna reached out to a career coach, and when she leaned into her executive MBA colleagues, when she let other people into the weight she was carrying, she was not giving up responsibility. She was distributing it correctly. She was building a structure around her that could hold more than one person ever could alone. And that is what the trust tax demands as a solution. Not harder work, not better coping, a deliberate redesign of who holds what, and the courage to ask for the support that should have been there all along. If you are someone who has been carrying everything yourself and you know who you are, I want you to hear this. The ask is not the weakness. The refusal to ask is what makes the system fragile. Because the system that runs on one person is one person away from breaking.
Yeah, people are helpful, and that's what I really, really appreciate. And I realized during my journey, right, if you ask for help, you will likely receive that. So, and that's something what worked for me when it comes to responsibilities and and deciding on your career path.
Okay. I think that's great advice, and I'm glad that we were able to bring that out. So for someone who is capable, driven, and trying to grow themselves in their career, how would you advise them to expand what they're doing without ending up caring more than they really should?
Okay. So first of all, confidence, a lot of confidence in yourself. I think that's something that frequently is missing when you're changing the careers and you feel very lost in your path when the path is new, which is obvious. So a lot of trying to have a lot of confidence in yourself, in your skills, because skills are usually there, but we just kind of don't think about ourselves that we are able to deliver. Support, finding support, as I mentioned before, I think it's very important to support yourself with, I call them cheerleaders in my life, people who will cheer you up and who will help you. So having like people who are really your cheerleaders and can really lift you up in those moments, seeking guidance from others, and defining clearly where you want to go, or trying to define clearly what is your next goal, because that will help you to redirect the energy and reshape your way towards the career that you are looking for, rather than spreading yourself too thin among different projects, different events, different engagements. So having that clear, spending time on thinking what is the next goal, I think it's very important. It could take weeks, it could take months, just kind of clearly define where you want to go. And once you have that clear, just start moving towards the direction. And that's my recommendation for others.
Excellent. Any last final words of wisdom for the folks that are listening?
You're capable of more than you think. So just start doing and everything will go well. I think that's what I want to share with others. I think start doing and start moving and everything will be fine because it is in you. And it has to, they have to just have huge confidence in themselves and everything will go well. And I truly believe that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us on Unsealing You. I'm sure folks have some questions. Should they reach out via LinkedIn?
Absolutely. More than happy to connect with anyone through LinkedIn. More than happy to have a chat and reply any questions that others can have.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Natalie.
That was Joanna. And I want to sit with a few things that she said before we close. She described hitting a wall, not from failure, but from success, from being trusted so much that the load compounded past what any one person could carry. She described not knowing what to call herself because the role she had mastered for 10 years was no longer the role she was meant to occupy. She described a to-do list that was never emptied. And the moment she realized it wasn't her fault, she realized it was the design. And then she did the hardest thing. She asked for help. Not because she gave up, it was because she finally understood that carrying everything alone is not a sign of strength. It's a sign that the system needed to change. And she was the only one positioned to change it. And that is the trust tax in reverse. Instead of the system extracting from you, the system actually holds you. If something in this conversation landed for you, if you recognize yourself in Joanna's story, I want you to ask one question before you move on with your day. What are you carrying right now that was never actually yours to carry alone? You don't have to answer that immediately, but I want that question to stay with you because the moment you can name it, that's the moment you begin to redesign it. If you would like some tools to help you along your way, visit the Unsealing Zone at Unsealing, like the ceiling above your head, Zone, UnCeiling, zone.com, and I have some free tools for you and a notebook that you can use to help you along the way. This is Unsealing You, and I'm Natalie Luke, your host. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you the next time.